Hello, and welcome to Booked Solid, a podcast for young adults, new adults, and the forever young adult at heart. I'm Kathleen.
And I'm Sam, and welcome back to another episode. How are you doing, Kathleen?
I'm doing okay. I'm starting to think that this season is cursed, but I'm just rolling with the punches at this point and trying to get comfortable with that horrible knowledge.
Well, yeah, so we've had a lot of technical issues. We're a little bit delayed in getting some of our episodes out. We've had memory issues, battery issues, recording location issues. So we apologize if the sound quality is not great. The library is under construction. We're very excited. We are building a new library, which should be ready in Q1 of 2023. But it's made for some challenging podcast recording sessions. We also don't have a team. Can we recruit? Can we get people? We don't have a manager. We don't have a sound engineer. I've listened to a lot of podcasts, and it's just you and me in a closet. We should.
Yeah, no, I mean, if people could see our workspace, they would feel bad for us.
Yeah, we're basically in a storage closet, but onward, we'll keep soldiering on. We read a really great book this month. It's really out of our comfort zone in so many ways. And it's not really something I don't think Kathleen would have picked up or I would have picked up, but it's a fascinating book because it's in a mixed media collage. It's illustrated poetry. It's a collaboration. The book is called Ain't Burned All the Bright by Jason Reynolds. The artwork is by Jason Griffin. And the book centers on a Black family that is indoors during the COVID pandemic. It viscerally captures what it means to be Black in America right now. Quite a bit of social commentary. It's a fascinating format. It was published this year in January, and I'm pretty excited about it. It's a really unique pick for us.
So before we get started, going to give my typical spoiler warning, and this is actually a really short book. I want to point out it is 3 sentences and then 300 pages, the mix of art, and then a lot of pages just have 1 or 2 lines of text. And so it's a super fast read, so you can definitely read it, come back, and then listen to us talk about everything.
I do recommend it. What was really interesting for me was that it took me a long time to read this book. I started it a few weeks ago, and then I stopped it. I think for me, and I think our audience is aware that I'm BIPOC, and I get very overwhelmed with this topic sometimes. It is beautifully written. It vibes as a testimony, a contemplation. Jason Reynolds, I'm a huge fan of his work. He's written some outstanding books. He's the #1 New York Times bestselling author of more than a dozen books for mostly young people, including All American Boys, which is a classic in my mind, and Long Way Down. He also wrote a wonderful middle grade series about track. He usually writes from his experiences about what it's like to be Black in America. And this book is rather powerful. We've talked about this before, where verse can be a little bit more potent than prose. And I want to talk a little bit about Jason Griffin. He's an artist and a master collaborator, and he's shown his art in major cities all over the world. And he's had some really incredible commissioned murals, such as the Children's Cancer Center wing at Montefiore Hospital in the Bronx. The two Jasons are friends. They even have a book sort of called that. And this idea came to them that they were kind of bummed out during the pandemic and upset about the news. And so they wrote this very powerful book and illustrated it together. It was tough for me to get through. The topic's hard, but I think it was ultimately uplifting at the end.
I think it is hard to take. Well, I think one of the most interesting things is that so many times you're reading a book and you haven't been through those same experiences, but literally all of us were experiencing some variation of what they're talking about. It's so immediate. The fact that there aren't really that many books out that are tackling COVID to begin with, and then it's all of the lockdown and all of these fears about the pandemic and the Black Lives Matter movement, and it's just completely in the moment, really. Like I think that was one of the things that stuck with me the most, which is just that I immediately was on the same page as them. But as you said, I think it is ultimately uplifting because it gives you all of that and all of the things that you've kind of been thinking about. And I think there's that question of how do you make this uplifting? How do you feel better about it? And we're all grappling with that. And I think they do a lot of nice things where it's like, okay, you're in the thick of it as you're reading it, and you are like, oh, I'm really bummed. I don't know if I want to pick it up, and I get that. But I think the end, it wrapped it up nicely for me, where I was like, okay.
I think what's really hard for me about Black informed literature or own voice art and books is that there is a real heavy responsibility to tell the story. It's important to tell the story. I think unless you have brown skin in America, it's really hard to imagine the constant and endless microaggressions and coupling that with the news stories of the last few years. The two Jasons in this book address it directly. One of the bigger themes in this book is breath and breathing. So there's a family. The artwork is very abstract, so it's hard to sort of place them beyond that they're a Black family of four and they're in a small house, and maybe they're not, but it just feels sort of stifling. And this stifling energy, the book's in 3 parts. Each part is called Breath 1, Breath 2, and Breath 3. And then there's repetitive line, breathe in, breathe out. The father ostensibly has COVID and is struggling with a terrible, sort of frightening cough that Jason Griffin uses a lot of bright reds and blacks for to show how menacing and scary it is, while the mom is actually sitting and watching TV, and the television is sort of a portal that almost makes everybody in the room depressed. The channel doesn't change, the stories don't change. And there's a real tie into the Black Lives Matter movement. I Can't Breathe is a slogan that's associated with that movement, and it originates from the last words of Eric Garner, who was an unarmed man who was killed in 2014 after being in a chokehold by a New York City police officer. And there's a number of other Black Americans who have said a similar phrase while they were dying. And the way that the artwork and the verse overlays those two things together is powerful and pretty upsetting for me.
Definitely. I mean, I think that is a good point, that it is that collaboration. It is sort of, it's not just the words, it's not just the images. Those things coming together, I think they build on each other, and I think there's a lot of depth on every page. And so even though it is technically a fast read in that, you can read the words very quickly, you can take in the pictures very quickly, there's that depth as you kind of drill down on each page to like all of that it's showing you and kind of eliciting in your thoughts and your memories. Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the use of color is huge in this, and the reds are very visceral, they're very like violent, usually types of imagery, fire, things like that. And then blue is another really big color in this, where it can be either some sort of like destructive, like drowning motif, but also the blue skies and that kind of peaceful look. I think it was really an interesting way to engage, and I don't know that I always feel comfortable, talking about art and how do I describe that visual language, but I thought that it was great to notice those recurring motifs both in the art and the words, and then try to figure out, well, what does that mean? Why are they sort of repeating these themes?
Absolutely. I found the color and the pacing of the verse and the art, it was a little inescapable. There's one page shortly after the voice in this book, the speaker, talks about his reaction to finding out that on the news that someone his age also died. There's just this page that's all blacked out. It's painted black. It looks like it's been taped over in black, and it's just like this pause, and it's the desolation is powerful, and just that pause to think about that. And then later in the book, that first green page, grassy, and it does tie into that. Finally, you feel the color palette, the mood, the very heavy subject matter, the fear of the father's illness taking hold, the mother's checked out, almost desolation. We only see her sort of from behind, and she's not engaged, and no one in the family is engaged. It is very stifling. It's remarkable how they created that just emotion as you're reading the book. And then you hit this page, and book 3 is a lot more uplifting, and you hit this green page, and you feel fresh air. You feel fresh thoughts. I love at the end that breathe becomes more about inhale, exhale. We keep going no matter what. We're in this together, connecting. The family connects again. There's an image of them on a couch all together. They're touching each other. They're watching TV together. I love also that scene where he finally gets his brother to put down the video game and fight with him, which is actually funny because it was just like this brotherly scuffle, and then the sister had to get involved, and yet that was a really uplifting turning point for me.
I think definitely where there's just everyone, I think, when thinking about lockdown or the pandemic, is this idea of being apart. And so it's interesting that even in this story where they are ostensibly together, they are apart. They are kind of focused on their individual screens. But then there is this coming together at the end and this connection. And I think all of those, the lack of connection as a theme that kind of permeates the earlier parts, when you see them all come together, I think that is really a beautiful way to kind of resolve, well, what have we been missing? What have we lost? And what can we reclaim?
Yes, and even not only do they, the family in the end is just such a powerful, like, this is what matters, love, connection, that we continue forward. But that one scene where the mother's lower lip trembles, and I thought it was going to be tears, and it turns out it was the bottom lip of laughter, and there's a lot of that. And then the father has that one scene as well. So the book sort of ends on, it's important that we turn to each other, that we connect with our loved ones, that we find laughter, that we find in our breath, just no matter how desolate or upsetting things are, that we just keep going, we keep moving forward.
So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the altered books aspect of it, because you're a big fan of altered books. Yay. And you've done programs on altered books, and immediately, this was actually why I recommended the book to you, is because I said, Sam, this is basically what you make, and they've turned it into a very heavy book, and it's brilliant and it's great, but I was hoping you could talk a little bit about that.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you brought up altered books. Guess what I did last night?
Did you make an altered book?
No, there's no time for that. I found, remember so I packed up a lot of things. We were renovating the house just at the beginning of the pandemic, and I couldn't find any of the altered books. I found them last night, and so I love altered. So let's back up. So a lot of you are probably wondering, what is an altered book? An altered book is a mixed media art form, and what you do is you take an existing book, generally a hardcover. Usually I like to pick prose or written words. I don't really like to go with something that's large with images. And what you do is you take something like that's either slightly damaged or would be recycled or would be, for whatever reason, you don't have a place to donate it. It's a way to reuse it. And what you do is you create a little bit of art on each of these pages. And it's mixed media, and it's a lot less pressure than a blank canvas, I find, because there's already words on the page. So I used to teach some classes to my young adults, and we all go downstairs to our recycled books bin, and everybody would pick out books. Sometimes we would paint, sometimes we would just get Sharpies and do blackout poetry. It is National Poetry Month, so Kathleen and I are giving poetry quite a nod with not only this book selection, but I encourage you to look it up. I also, as one of my recommendations for this episode, Our library, if you are a library member and you have a card, you can go onto our website, newcanaanlibrary.org, and click on research. It's just where we have all of our databases, and select Creative Bug. And if you log on to Creative Bug, it's quite wonderful. It has a lot of different artistic videos. You can learn to do anything from making soap to watercolors to sewing to decorating cakes. Anyway, they have something called a daily practice, which is just like 5 minutes a day of working on something artistic. And they have a daily practice specifically for altered books. It's a great way just to do something creative. You're not quite worried about destroying a blank canvas or a sketchbook because there's already something on the page. And you can use mixed collage, you can paint. I even have a page where I glued a map and I used embroidery to sew the topographical lines. It's just a way for you to play artistically. And if you search online, there's some very elaborate altered books that you open up in all sorts of magical trees and painted vignettes. But I will definitely make sure we have something on our website so that people can check that out.
That sounds great. I mean, this is one of the things that I think is so cool, which we talk so much about, how it's thematically really rich and interesting and thoughtful, but also it is playful. I mean, I think despite the really heavy subject matter, I was just so taken in by all of the kind of unexpected things that Jason Griffin was doing on the page and kind of interacting with the words. And it was just very inventive and really great. And I just love that pure expression and the way that when they have a little interview at the end of the book, which I think is really great. And they just say, that you should be giving yourself over to the text. And I think giving yourself over to the book. And I think that's really great as a way to think of it, because you don't have to, it is interpretive. It is something that kind of appeals to your own feelings and your own interpretation of it. So I think that was like a really great thing to just say, don't feel intimidated, but just embrace it.
I love that you said that, because one of the things that I've found in my altered books classes, and even looking through my own altered book from 3 years ago, because you develop it over time and you pick a different page. I have one page glued together where I carved out a place to put a key. I have different places where I've doodled and scribbled. That simplicity and playfulness is a big part of, I think, what's here.
Yeah.
And I think the simplicity and playfulness is also why powerful emotions come through. It reminds me of when you have a child draw a picture of their family. There's a lot of really powerful things that can come through.
Definitely.
When you do that. It could be a stick figure, but it can say a lot. Colors picked, sizes, just words blacked out on a page, just simple colors. They have powerful emotions attached to all of that. And so I do see that's one of the really great juxtapositions here, where there is this playful, almost childlike wonder in the voice, in the images, and yet they're so sophisticated and powerful. So did you come across any lines that you particularly loved in the book?
So it's so hard to talk about because there is the visual element along with the words. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to read a quote from it, but I also wanted to talk about sort of the interplay between one of the lines of poetry with the art. So first I'll just give you the quote, which is, "And worry is worn like a knit sweater in summer, and can't nobody breathe in a knit sweater in summer. A turtleneck wrapped around my whole family, our necks caught in a tunnel of too much going on. And it feels like I'm the only person who can tell we're all suffocating." I picked a happy one, but no, I mean, I think visually, like all of those, I can picture it so well, even without like the artistic, I'm just immediately there picturing what he's saying.
I love that quote because, again, it's just a few words, but it's powerful. Like, I'm getting panicky and itchy just thinking about this turtleneck that is so uncomfortable and stifling on a hot day. And again, tying back into that ability to breathe and how the main character is basically looking for a solution, an oxygen mask. And I think that sweater imagery it's wonderfully itchy and uncomfortable.
And then secondly, I wanted to bring up one of the pages, which I thought just had such an interesting visual comparison. So basically, the line of the poem is about coughing up a song I haven't learned the words to yet, which I just thought was so great, so well written. But the image is of sort of like what you would see as like an X-ray, where you would see like ribs, but then it's also piano keys. So it just, the way the ribs kind of flow into the piano keys, and you can kind of see the similarities of that. I just thought it was really inspired, and I really, that was my favorite.
I love that. I mean, this book is full of those nuggets. You could actually, it can take you weeks to read this book, but you could probably finish it in 20 minutes. I recommend that you do a little bit of something in between. I was reading them in short spurts throughout a couple of weeks. But like an art gallery, you can sit and pause at a spread and really pay attention to a lot of little details, the color work, the way the words tie in. In fact, I like that you bring up piano keys, because I did notice on one spread, they're, heavy in blacks, and a lot about the desolation, about the channel never changing, a little bit of commentary about the news not changing. And it was musical notes, but it was the same note over and over across the top of the page. Just these beautiful little details, and it does feel like a journey through an art gallery.
Definitely. And it's so funny to me, because I think we were really apprehensive about talking about this book, because again, it's kind of outside our comfort zone. It's not really a typical book that you might pick for a book discussion, but I think it's actually really great for a book discussion, because no one is going to pick the same things as someone else. Everything you pick up on, someone else is going to say, oh, I didn't think about that, I didn't realize that. There's just so much there, and different things resonate with different people. And so I've really enjoyed talking about it with you, because like these things were not occurring to me.
Wait, so you like poetry now?
Because no. Let's stop the recording.
It sounds like we should do more books in verse for you. But it sounds like it's the art that you really enjoyed, and the play of the words with the art. But you also loved Blood, Water, Paint. Season 1, Episode 1. We've come a long way, but I'm seeing a trend here.
I know. I'm very concerned. But I think when it's well done, which it's absolutely well done here, it was absolutely well done with Blood, Water, Paint. It just has to be at the top of its game. That's all I ask.
It's not so much what, as long as it's excellent.
It just has to be the best.
Okay, well, I have a few read-alikes. If you enjoyed this, I struggled with coming up with read-alikes, because this is really an unusual book. I don't know that I've read another book quite like this. I don't think of this as a graphic novel. I don't really fully think of this as a book in verse, because you really can't separate all of the amazing Jason Griffin art from all of the incredible, insightful American experience that Jason Reynolds puts in verse. However, if you did like this book, I'm going to recommend Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. It's just in verse. I absolutely loved it. It's about the main character really struggles with whether or not he should avenge his brother's death, and Jason Reynolds expounds a little bit more in terms of like longer pages of verse. It's really well written, and so the main character is descending an elevator, and he's deciding on that journey what he's going to do. The next one, another incredible author with excellent, insightful commentary about the Black American experience, and that would be Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. She wrote it. It's a little bit of a memoir. It's in verse. It is beautifully written verse. A lot of social commentary. It's also, much like Ain't Burned All the Bright, a lot about connection with family and how she's become shaped by her experiences and her different members of her family, and also sort of her journey to become an artist and a writer. So that's an outstanding book. I'm going to put Kathleen on the spot here, because there's a book that I wish I had read, but I haven't, and I know that you have. That's Piecing Me Together by Renee Watson. Because collage is sort of an unsung artistic venue in literature, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that book.
Yeah, so this was a great book, and probably the only book that I know of about collage, quite honestly. The main character, Jade, She's just looking for a way to succeed in life, basically. She gets accepted to a private school on a scholarship, and she's kind of immersed in her test prep opportunities, these groups that she's being asked to join, and she's kind of looking for her artistic outlet and her way of expressing herself. And I just thought it was great because it's kind of this quiet story. It's kind of, I think Jade is very interior in a lot of ways, but she has this passion for collage. And I mean, I really, I think the only regret I have really is that you kind of you have to picture what she's creating, and I would love to be able to see it. But it's the kind of book that'll make you want to do collage.
Do you think you will pick up altered books or collage? Are you artistic? Do you engage in art?
I am not artistic. And I think the thing is, I look at something like this and I say, I should do that. I can't do that, but I am inspired by it. So I think, I probably can't do the really beautiful, really detailed. I could probably carve something. I could carve some pages and hide things. And I don't know. But no, I think I do like the idea of blacking out certain text and what remains, and the blank space and things that are removed, said and unsaid. I love all of that. I mean, I think that's really great. I don't know if I could make anything at the level that Jason Griffin is doing.
I like altered books for you because there is that lack of pressure. No one's ever sat in front of an altered book and said, I'm going to make something exquisite. It's just like, I'm going to play and see what happens. And usually in that process, you end up with something powerful and exquisite. So I'll circle back to you and continue to encourage you to do that.
I saw your eyes go wide as you pictured me with like a knife.
That was when you mentioned carving, and it's so funny. You were thinking book. In my mind, I saw you carving sinister messages into, like, I don't know, walls and furniture. So
help me.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's kind of your usual genre.
It is. That is. Yeah, we got to get back to that at some point.
Speaking of, what are we reading next?
So, should I say that we were both really excited about this?
I am excited. I am. I admit it.
And so this is going to be our season finale for season 3.
Ooh.
I can't believe we're there. So the book is called Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson. Came out a few years back, a book for adults, but I think it's also got great teen crossover appeal. It's about two women, Lillian and Madison, who were these unlikely roommates at their elite boarding school, and they've kind of kept up through letters over the years, but otherwise lost touch. But then Madison contacts Lillian and asks for her help in taking care of her twin stepkids, who are a little unusual because they can burst into flames.
I almost stopped you because I read this book without knowing that.
You did?
I didn't even know that.
There's a kid on fire on the cover.
Okay. So I have to admit, I was like frantically looking through my digital library. I think I was looking on Libby and Overdrive and Hoopla. I just desperately needed something to listen to because I was about to embark on an 8-hour journey up to Vermont and back. And this was only about a month ago. And so I kind of downloaded this book sight unseen and didn't even pay attention.
Okay.
It was just on our collections manager here does, and a little shout out to Lauren Phillips. She does an incredible job curating the content on our digital platforms. And she had one of just like award-winning and wonderful books worth taking a look at. And just on that alone, I jumped in and I listened to it 4 hours up, spent the weekend in Vermont, listened to it 4 hours down, and we usually don't share how we feel about it, but I guess we can end on a note of like being open and upfront for the end of the season. I absolutely loved it.
I think we're both radiating with excitement right now. Yeah, no, I thought it was fantastic. I gave it to my mom for Christmas right after I read it. Like, I was just immediately like, people have to read this. And I'm really excited to revisit it because I thought it is kind of like an out there premise, but it's such a good book.
I didn't even
sweet.
I didn't even think that the author, I was like, there's no shot you're going to be able to deliver on this. And I was really
so charming.
Oh my gosh, we're starting. We should start. We should stop and record and just. Do you want to do that right now? We'll just stop and record. But yeah, no, I think that wraps us up. That was really fun. I actually love this. This was actually a great suggestion that you made based on how much I love altered books, based on the fact that I have a raging crush on Jason Reynolds, and just a really amazing read. But I think I'll have to read about black dragon slayers and wizards or something like this after this. It's heavy. So I just want to warn you. It's definitely truing.
It's, yeah, have some balance in your life.
Yeah. That's the whole challenge. All right. Thank you for listening.
Bye.